Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are back. Back with another one. Back with another one. Oh, let me do this before we get on the road and start the show. Welcome to all my basketball heads on all channels, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So we was already locked in on Instagram. We'll make sure we straight there before we start the show. There we go. All right. Now we're ready to start. Welcome to Basketball Heads Live. I am your host, Glenn Poole Harding. And oh boy, we have a very special guest. This basketball head is the author of This is Panther Country, a memoir of youth, underdog spirit, and basketball glory, set against the vibrant backdrops of mid-1970s Long Island, New York. This heartwarming memoir captures the excitement, challenges, and camaraderie of a small-town varsity basketball team and its dreams of triumph. At 13 years old, this basketball head grew up in a close-knit Irish-American family, struggles to balance school, friends, and the newly discovered world of teenage society. It's an era when race and class divisions were very real, but bridged by the athletics and community purpose. From this vantage in the 8th grade, this basketball head and the village of Babylon followed their varsity basketball team, the Panthers, as they fight their way forward in hopes of claiming their first ever Long Island championship. Man, I can remember like it was yesterday. Just remind me of a story of myself and my Abraham Lincoln team in 1986 against all odds, the Underdog, and coming out victorious. So y'all stay tuned and check out this story because I think this is going to be a goodie. So without further ado, help me welcome to the show, author of This is Panther Country, a memoir of youth, underdog spirit, and basketball glory. Let's welcome to the show, Tom McKeown.
Y'all ready? Yes. You have just stepped into the world of chaos, where everybody goes hard. Come on. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Or go home. Never back down. You gotta hold your own. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. East Coast. Go hard. West Coast. Go hard. Midwest. Go hard. Dirty. Hurry up, everybody. Get online, buy your tickets, cause the game about to start.
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Doing well, Glenn. Great entry, and thank you for those warm words of introduction.
Nah. Listen, man, I can't even take credit for that. You're a great writer, and you paint that picture so vividly. So it was easy for me to give you, back and give the audience just a backdrop of what they're about to get into. All my students on here. What's up, Josh? All right, appreciate you. Gotta appreciate when your kids show you love, man.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
No
the future.
Doubt. That's right. So, great book. First of all, gotta show everybody copy of the book. Let's do that. All right. It's a great cover. These are some of the players that played on that team.
Absolutely.
Wow. What's a memorable time? And look at the shorts. The shorts got those the belts.
Yeah, that was I mean, the short shorts, the belts, and the high knee socks.
Look. I didn't play in the 70s, but close to it.
Yeah.
We had the tight shorts, and it's crazy because I remember the shorts moving to the baggy shorts.
Yeah.
Now they're back to the short shorts. Kids are rolling up their shorts to make them shorter.
Yeah.
So hey, the phases go in and out, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So I have another book here, which I'm going to be giving out. We'll do a basketball heads challenge, right? And you'll get a signed book. I know you signed one.
I think I signed both, didn't I?
Oh, you signed? Yes, you did.
Yes,
you did. There you go, right there. All right, signed from the author himself. I'll definitely do a basketball heads challenge, and send that out to our lucky winner.
All righty.
Right, and everybody can share parts of the story.
Yep.
So I want to jump right into this, right? Who introduced you to the game of basketball?
Well, I always kind of talk about my sports consciousness took place in like 1969 in New York when they had the Knicks, the Mets, and the Jets all won championships, and I gravitated towards basketball and just initially just in sixth grade worshipped Walt Frazier. I just loved the way he played, and I just wanted to be cool like him. And then when I got into junior high school, I tried out for the team, and we had a pretty good program going at that time. We hadn't gotten to the levels we got to in the book, but basketball was pretty big. And also my father, loved basketball, and he grew up in New York City and had moved out to the island. So I got into basketball very early on, but it was watching the Knicks and then, getting into high school where it was a big thing that really got me into the sport.
What was Tom like as a youngster? Let's go back, Tom. With you as a youngster, you guys coming from the city, moving out to Long Island, and you're experiencing now a whole different world, right? And how things were on the island. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, well, I probably didn't have much of an experience in the city. I was 5 years old when we moved out to Long Island, but we always had this thing with my father because he grew up in the city, and he used to kind of joke about us like we were farmers because we lived out on Long Island. It's like, you kids don't know anything out here. You need to grow up in Manhattan to get the whole world. And I talk about it even a little bit in the book. I was trying to drag him to go to the high school games when I was in eighth grade for this story. And he was even kind of like, they don't have basketball out here. So we always kind of had this, Manhattan versus Long Island thing. Not that we were really fighting it, but it was an interesting time to grow up on Long Island. It was still probably a lot more rural than people remember it. Particularly, you'd have the border, which was right with Nassau. Nassau was a little more city; it bordered on Queens. But the farther you went out on Long Island, it was very rural. The Hamptons weren't the glitzy Hamptons that they are today. And there was a lot of, still farming out there east on the island. We go out and pick strawberries and stuff like that. So it was a different time to grow up, but it was nice. Babylon was a small village within the town of Babylon. So there were eight high schools in the town of Babylon, North Babylon, West Babylon, a couple others, and Babylon, which was Babylon Village. And oddly, we were the smallest of all those schools. The village was maybe 4 miles catty corner from one end to the other. So we rode our bicycles everywhere. When the weather cooperated, you could always walk into town, and parents were a lot more trusting. Like back then, you were 9, they'd let you take off and, come home at in time for dinner. And when you were 13 or 14, they'd give you curfews at 10 o'clock because they know you really couldn't get anywhere. But it was a great place to grow up. And then we'd take the Long Island Railroad if we ever wanted to go into this New York City and, see the skyscrapers and such.
Yeah, that was definitely a time. I remember the 70s. 70s was a great time. In 80s, those years for myself growing up. So I definitely understand what you're talking about. It was from a city standpoint, but still a good time. You also mentioned the racial divisions, right? So let's talk about what was the difference between like North Babylon and Babylon. Was there a difference when you cross over to that to North Babylon?
Well, for one, they were a lot bigger. Like I said, it was kind of bizarre that Babylon was the name of the Babylon, but
Right.
like of the 8 schools, we're probably the smallest. North Babylon, always had great teams, and in football and basketball, and you were about a mile and a half from my house. I cross the border, and you go right up Deer Park Avenue. You go past North Babylon High School. We used to play against them in summer leagues. There was a court called Phelps Lane up there where we'd go out and we'd play games there. So it was you got to know some of the guys you'd eventually play against. But the racial makeup was interesting because take Babylon Village, for example. We had one high school to the east of us, West Islip, which was all white. We used to call them White Islip.
Right.
And then we had another school on another border, Wyandanch, which was all black.
Yes.
And then there was Amityville and Copeg, which were predominantly black. And then Lindenhurst was a little more. But it was bizarre just the way the borders run up. Babylon was very good. We seemed to figure out the racial integration. We did live somewhat in different parts of town, but we were always at each other's houses and everything. One of my close friends, Ernie Vickers, was the younger brother of the star in the book, and he and I were always at each other's houses and like that. And the parents all knew each other, and everybody's mother was everybody's mother.
Right. Because you look on here, 3 black players, right?
Yep.
Right, 1 white player. So you saw that there was a mixture. There was a mixture. There was a blend of different racial makeup of the team. So that's very interesting, especially during that time.
Yeah. Like I said, we had a pretty good mix, and and it was different a little with the surrounding high schools, but basketball was very equalizing. If you could play, nobody cared.
That's very true. That's very true. So let's set the stage for our audience so they can get an idea of your book and the story that we're trying to talk about right now, so we could get jump right into it. Okay.
So up until 1975, there were I think 11 districts in the New York State Public High School Association. And they didn't play. I don't think New York State really ever had a 1-team state championship like Indiana or some of the other places. But the highest you could play was to your district, which was usually a county championship. So up until 1975, on Long Island, you had a Nassau County champion and a Suffolk County champion, and their seasons ended at the county championship. However, in 1975, they didn't put together a state championship, but they allowed each of those sections, those counties, to play one more game after the county championship. And it set up well for Long Island because there were 2 counties on Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk. So in 1975, that was going to be the first year. It was the 74-75 season. That was going to be the first year there was going to be a Long Island championship. And it was for the public high schools, it was all the schools were in. They weren't divided up by size or anything. So with that on the table, it was Suffolk always kind of got the rap of being more rural and not as good a basketball school as like Nassau, which was closer to the city. But Suffolk was really itching to get a game against Nassau to show how good they were. So they were counting on one of the big Suffolk schools, Brentwood, Sachem, which had 1,000-person graduating classes, to be that representative. Even the Suffolk County coaches were, like, well, we don't want some Cinderella school winning it that year, and then we get our first crack at Nassau, and we're throwing up, Cinderella.
Right. Nah, my guy CK from upstate, he said the sectionals. Yeah, let's because you said it didn't happen until like the late 70s. I know for New York State, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't really start counting state championships for until 1979. And even during then, there were 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yep.
4 different sections
Yeah.
of state champions, right? So
Yep.
you had in 1979, it was St. Anthony's from South Huntington versus Mount Vernon,
Yeah. So that
right?
was
And that was like the
Rodney
NY.
McRae, I think, was on that.
Yes,
mountain team.
yep. NYS PHSAA, right? And then you had
Yep.
Nazareth versus Norman Thomas, the PSAL. Then you had St. Agnes versus Cuba, which I have no idea what the hell is Cuba. And that was another NYSP SAA game. And then you had Bishop Newman, Williamsville versus Bridgehampton, right?
Yeah.
So those were the schools who came out of there during that time, which is crazy because there was the Catholic schools, like all Catholic. Yep. That's crazy.
And we had some great Catholic schools out on the island.
Man.
Lutheran, Holy Trinity. Yeah, there were.
The first year was the Catholic.
Mhm.
Catholic. It's crazy how that went. So you could see how later on they started kind of bringing it together, but still, it's still not one unifying state champion.
Yeah.
Still.
And that Long Island championship, even though it was just Long Island, was one title. There was, I think there were 56 schools in Suffolk County and about the same in Nassau County, not counting the private Catholic high schools. But so it was, it was 120, 130 teams all in one bracket, and so it was. It was a really great championship, and I think I was telling you earlier the Nassau Coliseum had just opened up, like in I think 1972.
Right.
It was brand spanking new, state of the art, and that was the first year they moved the county championships as well as that first Long Island championship to the Nassau Coliseum, and they had a really cool championship weekend. They had the 2 county championships on Friday night. And then a third game was the Nets playing, I think, Denver or somebody. And then Sunday it was reversed. They had the Nets followed by the Long Island Championship. So it was a big weekend for Long Island sports.
Hey, you guys didn't have to really leave Long Island to get some good competitions to see some good games.
No.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was I think I was in Babylon, and you were in Nassau County. It was Uniondale. It was 45 minutes in the car. Yeah.
I know I asked you this off camera, but I want to ask you on camera, right? What was it like to see a young Julius Dr. J. Irvin play?
Oh, it was like the thrill of a lifetime, because we even like our seats that we got were up in the bleachers, but back then there wasn't a lot of security, so you could walk down around the sidelines when they were playing, and he was so strong when he went in to dunk the ball, and I think I saw him block a shot of Artis Gilmore's that I thought his arm was going to come off, but no, he swatted it back. And, people saw him in his later career. I think he was a little more finesse, but in those days he was finesse and just bull strong. He's like, he'd go in and do a dunk and you'd be surprised the building was still standing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's, flash back again to that 8th grade Tom who's getting to witness these Babylon games live and in person. Like, how much of an impact did it have on you? As we see now, it had a great impact on you. But as a youngster, did you know that going to these games was going to impact your life as it did?
Oh, yeah, because it was, I live in Texas now, and Friday Night Lights, they talk about football, but up there, Friday Night Lights was basketball. It was during the year, that Friday night game, everything in the village stopped, and, there wasn't a seat to be available. But the one thing I talk about in the book is we were a small school, so we had a junior, senior high school. We were all in the same building. So we would see the varsity players all the time. Our practices were before theirs, so a lot of times the coach would let us sit in on the practices. And when we looked up to them, when they were good the year before, but they got knocked out of the playoffs early. So we knew we were going to be good this next year as well. And we had these two families which kind of fed the program in the 70s. We had the Vickers family. The star player in the book is a guy named Glenn Vickers, who went and played at Iona for Jim Valvano, had a great career there. And then there was the Farley family, which one provided the guards, the other provided the forwards and the big men. And I was playing in 8th grade at the time with the youngest Farley and the youngest Vickers. Actually, one of the youngest Farley, but one of the younger Farleys and Vickers. So they were kind of my friends. And, so through them, also by hanging out at their house, I get to, see their brothers, who were the guys we were looking up to, Glenn and Brian and Stephen and Chuck Farley. They were all just really great guys. And, they'd play basketball with us, kick our butt, but they were good with us. And so it was really in just a great time. And that season was a really interesting one, because we had some injuries earlier in the year. We faced we were in the same division, a league, as this great team from Amityville. And they were always, at least my years in high school, our arch rival. I played basketball, cross country, and track, and we played them every year in every sport. And it was always, the one you circled on the calendar. But that year they had a great team. We had a great team, and we played them 3 times, both during the league season. Each team won by 2. And then we had a triple overtime playoff game in the playoffs, which was probably the game of the decade in Long Island, or at least Suffolk County basketball.
As you talking about this rivalry and going against Amityville, in my mind, I'm just replaying the rivalry that I experienced at Abraham Lincoln. I just had done a podcast last week. The show didn't come out yet. Sit down with William E. Grady and St. John's legend Tyrone Grant, and Lincoln and Grady was right around the corner from each other. And the rivalries were intense.
Yeah.
It was so intense. The schools was literally right around the corner, and we was in the same league.
Yeah.
So just imagine that. So I know how intense the rivalries must have been for you, watching those games as a young kid. And seeing Amityville and Babylon face each other, losing that season to each other by 2, and then the overtime thriller in the 3rd game. How crazy was that for you to experience?
Yeah, and I've been in touch with a lot of the Amityville players, through writing the book, and I always felt bad that we played them in the playoffs so early, because I think because we won the league, they got in as a wild card, and we played in like the 2nd round, and they were the 2nd best team. They were easily, and if you read the book, it was like a 1-point game in triple overtime. So 3 games, 3 overtimes, combined points, 1 point different. That I see them all the time. I say, like, a foul shot here or there. And the book was called, This is Warrior Country or whatever.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Could have been. Wow, then you'd have been a Benedict Arnold coming from Babylon.
No, I wouldn't have been the one to write the book.
Right. Wow. That's amazing. So, now we get to understand while watching those games was so enjoyable to you, and the advantage that you had that was a junior senior high school. For those people that don't know, here in New York City, that's a middle school and high school together.
Right.
Correct? Right.
Yeah. So 7th grade through 12th grade. Yeah.
Yes, we don't have that in the city.
Yeah.
So we, people, I want to make sure that people understand what that is. You have a lot of that upstate with kids who are exceptional, depending on their team makeup. Sometimes that 7th or 8th grader could play on the high school team.
Yeah.
And that's where we get all these leading scorers for the state. Like, I want to say Jim Fredette. There's a couple other guys who were leaders in state scoring who played since they were like in 7th or 8th grade. Yo, CK, run up some names of some kids who played in 7th or 8th grade, right? See, he said it's true, right? He knows. And, you know, they become some of the top scorers in the state because they play high school ball like 4 or 5 years. I mean, 5 or 6 years. There you go. Yep, Joe Girard he went to Syracuse. Yeah, he scored so many points, which is crazy. But again, getting back to this, right? When did you know you was going to write this book? This is Panthers Country. And
Yeah.
what was the inspiration? Was it solely that championship? That was it the first championship?
Yeah, it was the
School's
first
history?
one, and we actually won it the next year. So it was you know, we did back to backs. The coach wanted me to write a 2-volume, and I said no, I'll just write this year, and if it takes off, maybe we'll write a sequel. But it was kind of multiple threads. I'd always known I wanted to write a book, and I wanted to find the right subject. And really, I first thought about it, you know, probably 40 years ago when I saw the movie Hoosiers, and I'm sitting there, you know, watching particularly when they got into the tournament, and like more and more cars were following, and the entourage going, because that's what it felt like when we, you know, it's like we won the league championship, and then we you know, the last year we had done the same thing and we got knocked out in the playoffs the first round. So nobody was really expecting much, but then we won one, we won another.
Woo.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you know, 2 cars turned to 5 cars. There was a fan bus, and all of a sudden, you know, you had this big entourage growing there. And when I saw that, I said, there's a story there. You know, I was, you know, if not front row, one of the good seats to watching it. I also wanted to write a kind of a story about growing up. You know, I had a great relationship with my family. My father died young, so I wanted to kind of write a book, you know, talking about him. So I was able to weave all these, you know, threads in together into, you know, celebrating a great story that I think people would like to see. And then the, you know, the underpinnings of, you know, what it was like growing up in the 70s, you know, in a small town on Long Island. And you kind of allude to it when you talk about it. Everybody who reads this book who's not from Babylon, it triggers a memory of theirs, you know, whether it's a football team or a basketball team that, you know, that brought their community together on a great championship drive. And it's, you know, you're so privileged if you got to be, you know, part of something like that, you know, either as a fan or a player, you know, to just, and I really wanted to celebrate it. And everybody was getting old, you know, so the coach is 90, 91. So you know, I'm semi-retired. I sold my company and I had some time, and I said, all right, gonna do it. So I sat down and, you know, I wrote the book, and I wrote it mostly from my memory and reading the newspapers and everything to get the first draft done. And after I got that done, I went around and looked up the players and the coach and everybody and reconnected with them, had some of them read it. You know, they kind of, you know, put their 2 cents in, which I included in the book, you know, tightened up the facts. Not everybody remembers things the same way. So we went to the newspaper if there were 3 different interpretations, but it really came together, and it was, and I wanted to get it out last March because March was the 50th anniversary of that title. So it all, you know, all kind of came together, and yeah, it's being received well, at least by the people I know.
Listen, I'm definitely going to promote it here. Put on my page the other day on my Instagram and Facebook. Going to promote it here, and definitely going to give away one for a Basketball Heads challenge. One of the great things about sports is it could bring people together from different classes, from different racial backgrounds. And that's one of the greatest things that I experienced in sports throughout my life. I went to Lincoln for 3 years, and then I went to Maine Central Institute for my senior year. And maybe it was, I think it was 4 Black kids in the whole town of Maine, and 4 of us was in the school. But if you ask all 4 of us how our experience was, it was great. You know, actually, myself personally, I live with my Spanish teacher, the Kingsburys, because I got to school late and the dorms were already filled up. So they had a situation where I stayed with this family who's become a extension of my family today, the Kingsburys, who I love dearly. And it was a great experience. And just from a human standpoint, it helped me grow and it helped them grow because I was their first guest that they hosted for that year, and it was a great experience.
And nobody does it alone. There's people like that all over your life.
No, right. But it was sports that did it, right? Without that situation, that would have never happened in my life. So I always like to, and I know they're gonna watch this because they always watch all the shows. Love y'all, the whole Kingsbury family. Appreciate y'all and everything y'all did for me. But yeah, it's wound up to be a great story. You talk about your coach. Let's talk about the star player, Glenn Vickers.
Yeah.
Right. I gravitated toward this because, of course, my name is Glenn.
Yeah.
And then my point guard up at Maine Central name was Rob Vickers.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was trying to put it all together. I was like, nah, that can't be. And which one was Glenn Vickers? What number was he?
Glenn is upper left. I think he's number 42.
Number 42, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and the guy next to him is the other one. That's Gervis Barger. So he was a starting point guard. Down on the left side is Stanley Davis. He was a sharpshooter.
Which one is Stanley? 34?
Stanley's in 34, right?
Yep. And who was this?
And that is Chris Brust. He probably had the most visible college career. He played.
Is that Matt Brust's brother?
That is Matt Brust's older brother. Yeah.
Well, I had Matt Brust on the show. This is crazy.
Yeah, he was at the launch. Yeah.
Wow. Small world.
I like to joke. I've known Matt Brust since I was taller than him.
Wow.
Yeah. So Chris played on that 82 North Carolina championship game. So
this is why Matt went to North Carolina. Then he wound up transferring and going.
And then he went to St. John's. Yeah. Wow. Like 3 years. Yeah.
See,
yeah, with a lot of.
He did mention that, but I didn't. Of course, you get now I'm getting a book. All these stories are coming together right now.
Yeah, and Glenn, who was the star of the team, so he was a junior that year, and he really, we all knew he was one of the best players in the county. But I think he went that year from being like, in the recruiter's mind, good to being superstar. But when we won the title at the end of the year, I think he got elevated to everybody's top radar the next year when he was a senior, and there were recruiters coming in and out of our locker rooms looking for him all the time. But he fell for the charm of a very charismatic Jim Valvano, who at that time was the coach of Iona and had just taken over that program. I don't think they had a winning season in a long time or ever. And he had this scout or assistant coach, Tom Patamarco, who literally lived at the Vickers house. Every time I went over to visit with Ernie or, the guys over there, he was there, Patamarco. I met Valvano once or twice, but I could describe Patamarco to a police sketch artist. I saw him so much. And,
right.
But what I always liked about Glenn is, he was the star, but he was always just so personable. I say, like, anybody in the school could, go by to Glenn and say, "Hey, great game," and Glenn would turn around, and start talking to him, and be like, "Really? Yeah, I missed that foul shot. I thought I could have played better." But always very genuine with whoever would talk to him. Not a big-headed superstar. And well, anyway, when Valvano managed to recruit him to Iona, he attracted a lot of the other Long Island talent with him. We were talking the pregame about Kevin Hamilton, senior. Kevin Hamilton was at North Babylon. He and Glenn were the backcourt of that team. Glenn was the point. Hamilton was the shooting. And then Jeff Ruland, who probably was the most successful Long Island player that he played in the NBA for 10 years. He was the center on that team. And then there was a guy named Alex Middleton from Deer Park, and then a guy, Mike Palma, who played for one of the Catholic schools. So, Glenn going there put that program on the map. And by the time Glenn graduated, they were ranked 19th in the country. I think they went 2 rounds into the NCAAs, but lost to John Thompson in Georgetown by a point. before they had Ewing, but it was Georgetown still had Sleepy Floyd and some of those great teams and everything. But,
so he could have went to a bigger school than Iona.
Oh yeah. It surprised all of us that he went to Iona because he was being recruited by everybody. And there was like we were all living through Glenn. We were figuring he'd be at UCLA, North Carolina, and we'd be watching him on TV. But the benefit of him going to Iona is he was playing in Madison Square Garden all the time. So we'd go in to see him play all the time. I saw him play against St. John's, Seton Hall, Hofstra, where his brother Willie Vickers was actually an older played. But Glenn, really was a tremendous player. And he had a younger brother, Brian, and Brian, who's not on the cover there, but Brian and the guy Chris Bruss were both freshmen that year. So they were like the freshman phenoms. So not only did they help us win those 2 championships, but they ensured we were going to be good for another 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
Brian, he was always, he always hung out with my friends and I. He was only a year older than us. He's physically, he was about 10 years older than us, but emotionally he was already.
Right.
So he was just a great guy, quiet, but, fantastic guy. And Chris actually got hurt at the beginning of that season. And I think which kind of surprised everybody when we started going in that run in the playoffs is he wasn't there most of the regular season. So when he came back, all of a sudden we had a 6'8" guy coming off the bench who wasn't there for the first, So
that's one of I think that's one of the in a book. Was that one of the sections where he talk about an injured player?
Yeah. So Chris got injured. I think it was in a practice after the first or second game.
Right.
And so he was out for a while, and then he came back the second to last, our last game of the regular season, and then gradually got inserted more and more into the lineup. We had a good center on the team. Was a guy named Barry Davis, but Barry was more of a natural forward. But he was 6'5", so he had been playing center all year. But if he got in foul trouble, our next biggest guy was, Glenn, I think was 6'3". But now we had this 6'8" guy who could come in and, spell Barry, and also, was just a force of nature that we hadn't had for most of the year.
What kind of style did they play?
Well, that's the thing. It was a very disciplined offense. They ran a 2-3 offense, which had people setting picks along the baseline. And then they would flash the one of the players up to the high post, and then they would run a triangle offense, long before Chicago did it. And actually, they could use it to slow the game down. They could put bodies on other teams. For example, we played Southside for the Long Island Championship, and they were a real run and gun team. And, the idea for that was to slow the game down and also, make them run over picks, because offensive teams don't like to play defense. And the idea was, to make them play defense.
And no shot clock back then either.
No shot clock, no 3-point line. So it was a different type of game. And it was the coach, Coble, he had perfected that offense over years. I played in junior high and I played all the way up to varsity. So I ran that offense for 6 years. I was sick of it by the time I graduated. And plus I was a guard. So you basically had to throw the ball down to the guys in the post the whole time. So you'd be lucky to get a driver, an outside shot at, but it was very effective at slowing teams down. And also he was very big on pump faking and drawing fouls. So if you look at any of the box scores from back then, we'd get half our points from the field goals and half from foul lines. And the teams we'd play would shoot 4 or 5 foul shots in a game. And they'd always complain it was the refs. And it wasn't. He'd pass it into the post, pump fake, the guy's up in the air, you go right into him, and you'd get a 3-point play or at least, 2 shots. And the big stat he used to track a lot. The coach was Roy Coble, if I haven't mentioned his name.
Yeah.
But he always tracked points per possession, so it was it was a stat that he always used. And a lot of college coaches actually adopted it from him, because when he, after the second Long Island Championship, he went to become the athletic director. And then when Glenn went to Iona, the Valvano actually brought Coble there to coach a few years as an assistant coach. And Valvano was more of a PR guy, so he was out recruiting, doing things like that. And he left a lot of the offense to the assistant coaches, and Coble actually put that offense into Iona. And it was very effective for them running it as well. So he took it with them, and I think so. I guess Glenn got to run that office for 10 years. 6
Yeah, whatever works. Whatever works.
exactly.
Hey, Glenn was part of the coach and players package, and maybe NIL before NIL.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, Glenn would score like 30, 35 points a game, and it'd be like 6 for 8 from the field and 20 for 22 from the foul line or something. Yeah.
From the foul line.
Yeah, he'd get to the foul line like 15 to 20 shots in a game. Yeah, because he was always, that was his superpower, more than anybody else. He could always get people to leave their feet, and then he'd lean in and get his shot off. And that's kind of how we won the Amityville game. He drew a foul at the end of the game. But I knew it at the time, but even as I was researching the book and going back and looking at all the box scores, I was like, yeah, geez, he spent the whole game at the foul line. And when I talked to the Amityville guys, they were always like, you guys always had the refs on your side. So, but it was a definite part of the offense was designed to draw fouls. And
yeah, the one thing that was different, and still to this day, between the city game and the Long Island game is that high school is located in that town. Everybody in that town is coming.
Yeah.
Right. And you can have 3 or 4 or 5 high schools in one neighborhood in New York.
Yeah.
So
you
have to have, you basically just, depending on your student body.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Long Island had the student body plus the people in the town that was coming to support them.
Right. Yeah.
So it made for, maybe standing room only. And was it huge lines for those Babylon games?
Well, we weren't, like I say, we weren't a big school, and we had probably as good a gym as anybody. I think it had like 1,000 people. It was good size.
Yeah.
And so we filled it up, but you generally wouldn't have, if you wanted to go to the game, you'd have no trouble getting a seat. But I do remember, particularly we'd have that Christmas tournament every year. So it was the 8 schools, and you'd have like 3 or 4 games in a row, and to be played at, in one of our high schools. And that was standing room only. You couldn't get people in there. So you'd have like, West Babylon playing Amityville in one semifinal, Babylon playing North Babylon, and you'd have all their people in the gym, one wanting to see that game and also wanting to see the game before it. And it was, those things were crazy. If you didn't get there early enough, you might not get to see the games. Yeah.
But what about there's a section in the book called Thanksgiving Weekend in Babylon?
Yeah, so a little bit about what I talk about in the book between the games is what it's like growing up in Long Island. So there were a lot of parties that went on at houses that if somebody's parents went out, they threw a party, and I was 7th, 8th grade at the time, and I joke in that, I think it was that particular chapter, a friend of mine, Ernie, said, he's having a party at his house. So my mindset at that time is party, cake and ice cream, right?
Yeah.
So I get over there, there's kegs of beer, there's funny smelling tobacco. And it was funny because I was actually injured at the time, and my father dropped me off, and I was grateful he dropped me off early because the party hadn't developed yet. And then in that, I'm thinking, like, when everybody shows up and there's like cars everywhere, and I was like, oh, God, I had my father planning to come pick me up at 11. I didn't want him to see all that. So I grabbed an older friend who had a car there on the block, and I had him drive me home. And I think my father was suspicious ever from that moment what was going on when I was going out.
Thanksgiving in Babylon. Yeah, one Thanksgiving weekend. You never know what might be going on.
Yeah, that was one thing. I get together with my coach, and I talked to a lot of the coaches who were around during that time. And that was the first thing they all asked me was, were there really that many parties going on? I said, no. Yep.
Another part of chapter in the book I want to get to is game 1 in the aftermath.
Game 1 at
and the aftermath. That's what it says. Game 1 and the aftermath.
Oh, right. Yeah. So game 1, the first game was against West Islip, the group that I talked about. The aftermath was
the white ice slip. That's what y'all called it.
White Islip. Yeah.
Right.
The aftermath was we played a great game. We beat them by like 20 plus points. And it was that next day at practice that Chris Bruss hurt his foot. So it was like, everybody's celebrity. God, we're so good. We're going to be great. Blah, blah, blah. Next minute, next day he's in a cast and you're like, oh, okay. So the aftermath was basically, we had a great time. We went to the game and everything. And then the next day in the practice, Chris got injured. So, and we had him and then another guy on the team whose name is Chuck Farley, who was the oldest of the two Farley brothers. He got hurt about 3 or 4 weeks after that. And that's what moved Brian Vickers into the starting lineup. And everybody knew Brian was good, but nobody knew how good. And when he got into the lineup, even when Chuck got better and came back, he didn't get back into the starting 5 because Brian was scoring averaging like 17, 18 points a game as a freshman. But then, we played the whole regular season, most of it without Chris and Chuck. And then when the playoffs came, they were both back. So we had an extra shot of, talent going into the playoffs, which I don't think any of the real opponents that we saw, save Amityville, had actually seen. So that made us an even more, potent competitor than we were during the regular season.
Let's walk through that playoff run, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get into that championship game and the climactic win that you guys had overcome and winning that first championship. Let's get to that first playoff game and then who y'all played next, and then
so
everybody can get the full story.
So we won the division, and Amityville and another really good team in our division, Smithtown West, both got in as wild cards. So we got a bye. So we went to the first round, but we gotten to the first round last year. And we had been knocked out by an upset, so we didn't get anywhere in the playoffs. So we're all a little conscious going into that first game, like that this didn't happen again. And we actually had not a great game. We only beat, one of the other wild card teams by 5 points, but we did manage to prevail. And so we moved on to the next round. And when we moved on to the next round, there was Amityville again, and Amityville had gotten their mojo back. I think after we beat them, they lost 2 more games, and they were a little bit in the rearview mirror because it looked like they were fading off. But then their first 2 games in the playoff game, they won by 20. They knocked out
wow,
one of the top seeds. They killed it, and so they were back. And when they showed up that game, I don't know. I always joke with them. They had the best game face as Amityville. When they came out, it was like watching Jim Brown or Bernard King. One of those guys who had that. And so that game, you just knew at the start. And that game was the one that went for triple overtime. It was back and forth. Players fouled out. And in the third overtime, so it was high school, I don't know if it is today, but I think it was 8-minute quarters, and then overtimes were 3 minutes. So we had 3 3-minute overtimes. And in the third overtime, we won the tap, and we kept the ball the whole time. We didn't, and for some reason, they didn't come out. I don't know if they're worried about getting into foul trouble, but they let us wind the clock all the way down to 12 seconds. And then Glenn got into the lane, did his move. He faked, got one of the players up in the air, and then got almost put it in, but he missed the shot, but he got 2 foul shots. And then Glenn got and so he went to the line, and he only made 1 of the 2 foul shots, the first one. So we're up by 1 with like 2 or 3 seconds left. And so they got the ball on the side. And I remember because I was like sitting about 5 or 10 rows behind the guy. It was this guy, Paul Smith, throwing it in. Mm-hmm. And Paul somehow managed to throw a sidearm around Chris Bruss to one of their players, Tony Boyce, who got a shot up, like in 2 or 3 seconds. The guy, and from where I was sitting, it looked like it was going in. And it was like all in slow motion, and it ended up thud hitting the side of the backboard. And that's how the game ended. And it was just incredible. And then so that was like on I think Thursday. or Tuesday, and then we moved into our next round. We played Central Islip, who was the defending county championship, and they weren't actually supposed to be that good that year, but they had upset Brentwood, who was the top seed in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
They always managed to get hot at the right time. Like the last year, I think they had gotten in as a wild card and ran the table. So we played them in. So there was this gym, and I talk about that. The big gym is
the big gym. Yeah, that was
my next Ward Melville. Yep. Ward Melville High School just had a giant gym from a real estate standpoint. I don't know if they had necessarily more seats, but
right.
You know, every other high school, you know, the bench was practically in the stands. You had about a foot between the feet and the court, and at Ward Melville, you know, you were 20 feet from the bench on the bottom row in the stands. There was 10 or 15 feet between the basket and the wall behind it. And so it was like almost like you were playing in a professional type or, you know, an amateur type arena.
Right.
We played Central Islip in one game, semifinal, and Sachem played Harborfields in the other semifinal. And that was, I also mentioned in the book, that's the first time I started seeing like college coaches popping up and doing recruiting. I think Lou Conaseco was there, Denny Crum, who was coaching Louisville. It's the guy who coached Maryland, Lefty Drizel.
Yep.
I went up and tried to talk to him, and he had an accent. I couldn't make out a word he said. So we beat Central Islip, and I had a fight with my brother because he didn't want to stay for the second game to see Sachem play Harborfields, and I wanted to watch the whole game. So we had to leave at halftime. Then we found out Harborfields beat Sachem by 2 points, and then we played Harborfields for the Suffolk County Championship. So that was on a Saturday. So it was a whole week before the next series of games. Up until then, I think it had been like Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, or whatever. And so when it got to the championships, you had the two county championships on Friday night, and the South Side played Malvern in the Nassau County Championship.
Yeah,
and they played like at 3:15 or something, and so we weren't able to get out of school and out there in time, so nobody got to see that game. Or I think our assistant coach went, because we had no idea what South Side was like, but it was a really high scoring, for a high school game. I think it was like 89-74. And then we played the second game against Harborfields, and we actually won that one pretty, I wouldn't say convincingly. We got up big, like about up 20 points at the halftime, and they came back a little, and we won by 7, and then we won the county championship. And then I kind of describe in the book is between Friday night, we won the county championship, and Saturday we played Southside. We went through this range of emotions. You're happy you won the county championship. And then all the newspapers, Long Island Press, Newsday, are like, Southside's going to kill Babylon. I don't know how Babylon got here, but, congratulations to them. But this is going to be a massacre. And so we got there Sunday night. Coble was a master tactician. He was playing it down in the newspaper. Oh, we're just happy to be here, blah, 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 But he had designed a specific way to play against them. And they jumped out to a kind of a head start. They had this great guard who was part of a family. There was Chucky Smith. He was a younger brother of Beaver Smith at St. John's. And then there was a Jeff Smith on the team too. So they were like the Southside Vickers family almost. And they got off quick to a start. And then we called timeout. Coble did a few things. And then we started working that offense, grinding them down, putting bodies on them, and slowly. And then by the end of the first quarter, we took the lead. Chuck Farley hit a jump shot, I remember, and then after that we just kept growing the lead. By halftime we were up by 6, then we were up by 16 or 18, and then
halftime it was 42-33. Halftime was 42-33. Right. Yeah.
And I think the final was like 72-62.
Yeah.
But I think in between there we got up by about 18 or 20, and then Coble was just, slowing it down, knowing they couldn't make that up. And just, and then he told me this afterwards is, I don't know whether they inscribed the trophies wrong or something. He said, but they had nothing for him after the game.
Listen, I could kind of understand where you're coming from when they said that, Southside was going to beat you guys because Southside had won 19 straight games.
Yeah.
Right.
And
they
then three of the last 5 Nassau County championships. So they were a dynasty in the making. Yeah.
So they was already writing them in as champions already. Right. But they didn't expect Glenn Vickers to come through and score 33 points.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was kind of, I say it was kind of through the whole season, but I actually think that game Glenn went from like, top recruit to superstar recruit. I mean, he was incredible in that game. He just took it to a new level. Yeah.
Wow. What a great story.
Yeah.
Now I'm definitely going to get into this. I love historical pieces, especially something of this nature where I can connect to. I told you I've been in that situation and understand it clearly. Yeah. Right. What did that do for the town of Babylon and for the rest of the kids and kids like yourself who was coming up?
Well, here's a funny story. So we had this town little league basketball. So I played in it after my 7th grade. It was in the summer, and we had these courts up on Park Avenue. I always remember they had steel backboards, which ruined your bank shot because it died on the steel. And then you'd go into the regular season and shoot it off of wood, and it'd bounce back to half court.
So true, so true.
But I remember the first year they did that, we had about 20, 22 kids show up. We divided into 4 teams. And then the next year we won the Long Island Championship. They had that same league. There was about 90 kids showed up. I mean, and their parents were there because some of the players from the team were the coaches. And so it's just basketball became it. And then going into next year, the expectations were just so high. Also, I talk a little bit about it in the book is some of the Catholic schools like Lutheran and Holy Trinity objected to the fact that we proclaimed ourselves Long Island champion because they had always had a Catholic high school, Long Island champion. So we actually took on Lutheran the next year with Wayne McCoy. I don't know whether their coach didn't think they could win or something, but he suspended Wayne McCoy right before the game. So we ended up playing them without Wayne McCoy,
So this is Long Island Lutheran.
Yeah.
Who was now a national powerhouse.
Well, yeah, and they were a national powerhouse then. They were I think McCoy was like parade All-American first or second. They were always tough, and they sought out to play us. And then they suspended McCoy like right before the game, and our coach always suspected, well, then it makes it a no lose for them. If they lose, they're like, well, we didn't have McCoy, and if they
right.
So
wow, and you guys won it 2 years in a row. How many championships have Babylon won over the years?
Well, in that particular run, so we had the League 5. We were in League 5 in Suffolk County. We won 5 of those in a row. So we won the year before the Long Island Championship. Then we won the 2 Long Island Championships and county championships. And then we won 2 more league championships. I was on the last one, the 5th of those. And then we kind of tailed off a little bit because we're a small school. And, like once Chris and Brian graduated, we went through a little bit of a down period. Then the 80s, I think we rose up again. We had the guy who coached me, a guy named Greg Walsh, took over when Coble went to the athletic director. He won a county championship in the mid 80s. So I went back to the school to see if I could get a picture of the Long Island banners, but they didn't have enough room to have all the banners up there, so they were consolidating them all. So they definitely won some championships over the year. But I will have to say the team that's really I talk about it in the book is Amityville after the 80s really went on to some great championships. Paul Smith's son Tristan, I think, was a 2-time state player of the year or something like that. And they won like 2 or 3 state championships. But yeah, Babylon was always competitive, and it helped in the 80s when they started playing, like I think they were the B level. So they were always playing schools their size. So it was, easier for them to compete. But, back in those 70s games, it was, one championship, everybody in, and that was the sweetness of it.
Yeah, that's when you get your full bragging rights.
Yeah.
Having somebody on the side going, well, you guys didn't beat us.
Yeah.
So always somebody that's gonna say that.
Yep.
That's crazy, man. What a great story, man. What a great story. Are you outside of this movie deal or documentary? Like what do you are you leaning towards any of
Well,
those things?
that's the hope. We get the book sales. The book's doing okay. It could do better, but I think there's a great story here for uh, whether it's a movie or a streaming series or something. Because after Babylon won those two county championships, Long Island Championship, the next year North Babylon won it. And then the year after that, West Babylon won it. So we had like a really good run in the 70s of and it was just such a classical era. I'm sure you felt that way about the 80s. It was very distinctive. We had some great talent, and there was a uniqueness of growing up where we grew up. And I think there's more than just a book to this story, but we'll see what the other powers think of that.
Hey, listen, if any of the guys that you're still in contact with would like to come on the show, hit me up. Let's make it happen. Celebrate them, and also just keep the story going on. So hopefully somebody pick it up one day.
You got it. Yeah, I'll definitely feed them to you. There's some great bunch of guys too.
Nah, I like to spread the wealth, man. Excuse me, throughout New York.
Fantastic.
And I want to thank you for reaching out. Usually someone got to refer you to get on the show, but as you see here, I'm gonna pull these out. Pause. Look at all of the authors who I had on the show, and I think it's important because a lot of times, so
okay, there you go.
so I'm not even finished yet.
Well, definitely when you finish it, drop me a note and let me know your thoughts. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Now look.
Yeah.
So because I would like to, dispel the myth that basketball players are dumb jocks.
Yeah.
Right? And here we got over 20 books of players, coaches who have wrote great books, who I brought on the show. Because, once that ball stopped dribbling, what else are we gonna do? And also we want to put into effect the education that we got out of playing ball as well.
Yeah. I mean, you can live in the present, but you can't. The past is just so great, and the nostalgia of growing up. And I think all times are great, but I love the 70s. I'm sure your memories of the 80s are like that, and you never lose that. It's just such a great time.
This is what Basketball Head is, man. We want to collect the history and document the history of New York basketball. We are the Mecca as a whole throughout the whole world. Yep. So when everybody talks about New York basketball, it resonates no matter where you are on this globe.
Yeah, so, you watch any college game, and there's two or three just playing from New York.
Yeah. Well, listen, Tom, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate this time. Please, let's buy this book. All right. This is Panther Country. Tom McKeown is the author. Get it on Amazon. Just type it in. It's going to pop up. All right? Let's support each other, and let's make this thing a #1 seller.
Thank you very much, Glenn.
All right? Okay. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Enjoy. Wow. This is amazing. See, look. You can never get rid of great stories. This is why I tell guys and girls, men and women, come on and tell your story. Somebody else gonna write it. It's a good thing that Tom was there. He was able to witness it. He lived it, got one of those championships, and then wrote about it. What a great time. And it's nothing like being part of that first championship. So with saying that, I want to thank Tom McKeown for coming on. And to all my people out there, make sure y'all go out there and cop that new AI camera called AI X-Spot Go. Excuse me. Here we go. XSpot Go is the new hand-free AI camera. You can use it for any sporting event. It can capture the highlights, it can capture the game, and it can focus on one player and give you highlight results afterwards. So please, if you want to buy that camera, XSpot Go, just copy and paste this link that I have here, or you can go to the show. It'll be there in the suggestion box in the link. 10% off if you type in the code BASKETBALLHEADZZ. We'll really appreciate your support, and it's a dope camera. You can use it for any sport. So check out the commercial before we end the show. All right, that's XSpot Go. The link will be in this show's comment section, so y'all go there and check out the link. It'll be right there. So please check out XSpot Go, add the code BASKETBALLHEADZZ, and get 10% off. Well, that's the end of the show. I'm about to end this. My name is Glenn Poole Harding. BasketballHeadz Live, the official home for New York City basketball. Peace.
Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Yes. You have just stepped out into the world of chaos. Where everybody goes hard. Come on. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Or go home. Never back down. You gotta hold your own. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. East Coast. Go hard. West Coast. Go hard. Midwest. Go hard. Dirty. Hurry up, everybody. Get online, buy your tickets, cause the game about to start.